It was the worst environmental disaster in Brazil's history. A torrent of liquid mud and mining waste that burst through a dam, destroying homes and taking lives. But could this catastrophe have been avoided? And could it happen again? Juliana Rufus went to investigate.
This church is filled with survivors of one of the world's largest and least known mining disasters. In November 2015, the community of Bento Rodrigues was one of several washed away by a tsunami of mud, unleashed by a collapsing mining dam. 19 people died and 6,000 were displaced. 8 months after the disaster, we have come to meet the survivors and prosecutors who have been leading the fight for compensation.
Eu acredito que a justiça será feita, mas temos que tomar sempre as decisões em conjunto.
Outside, the people of Bento Rodrigues are getting ready to honor the saint that gave their community its name. We meet Marinalva Salgado, who tells us everything has changed.
Antes a gente reunia com muita alegria, né? Hoje a gente reúne só para relembrar coisas ruins que passou, né?
For now, this community in the state of Minas Gerais is the latest affected by Brazil's dangerous mines, an industry in dire need of reform. The question is whether their fate will give rise to the much-needed changes. The following day, we have arranged to meet Marinalva again. Together with her daughter and her son-in-law, Marinalva has taken us to Bento Rodrigues to show us what's left of their former homes.
Da frente para aqui, tudo que tinha casa, essa beirada aqui.
Bento Rodrigues is now closed off, and a police escort had to take us in. For Marinalva, this is a rare opportunity for a visit.
Aqui era barzinho, que tinha na frente tinha outro. Aqui tinha banco aqui que a gente sentava todo final de tarde aqui, ó.
It is also the first time Eliane has returned.
É o sofá da minha avó, do mesmo jeito que ela colocava na sala. Para mim é um lugar estranho, porque não é igual, era.
The Fundao dam collapsed around 4 in the afternoon, when Marinalva and Eliane were waiting at the bus stop. Warned by a neighbor, they ran back to Marinalva's house.
Aí, ele para baixo, tinha uma tia minha. Na hora que eu gritei, já encontrei com ela vindo de lá para cá, porque ela escutou o barulhão. Aí eu gritando, corre tia, que a barragem vem, que ela olhou para cima, já vinha aquela onda em cima da gente.
Marinalva managed to alert her mother and her son just in time. Less than 20 minutes after the dam broke, her house was covered in mud.
E foi muita coisa que a gente perdeu aqui, tá? Muita coisa. Coisa valiosa. Aqui tá sumido minha aliança de casamento, tá aqui. Tudo aqui.
$50 million cubic meters of muddy wastewater produced by one of San Marcos iron mines had been unleashed. Within days, several police investigations were launched, eventually concluding that the company had been using mining waste to build the dam instead of rock and gravel. Experts went on record to say that San Marco had also failed to drain the dam as required. Over the next 2 weeks, the tsunami of mud traveled 650 kilometers down the River Dossi, flooding 2 more communities and killing fish and wildlife in its wake before reaching the Atlantic Ocean. Police reports detail how San Marco executives had commissioned changes to the dam against the advice of the engineer who built it, and even ignored his warnings when he spotted cracks during an inspection. The final recommendation was to charge the company executives with homicide, a decision that San Marco considers mistaken.
Já li o que tá aí, ô Cleito. Samarco queria nos matar, mas Jesus nos salvou.
Some of Bento Rodriguez's people say they weren't surprised. They had long been worried about Samarco's failure to install a warning system or put in place an evacuation plan. Without these, authorities should have never issued a license for the dam. Eliane and Clayton have decided to visit their old home further up the hill, where the mud didn't reach.
Foi destruído, arrancar no portão.
Que olha.
Inside the house, they find a different sort of destruction.
Ô, gente, meu casaco que eu mais gostava.
After they fled, their place was looted.
Nossa, quanta bagunça.
How do you feel that you've come back now?
Não vejo nada. Acabou tudo. Tudo. Tudo quebrado, destruído. Muito triste.
Today, most survivors have been relocated to the nearby tourist town of Mariana. We have come to the offices of the local prosecutor who is negotiating their claims for compensation. As a result, each survivor is now receiving a monthly minimum wage, a family payout of $8,000 per lost home, and free rented accommodation. In today's meeting, human rights prosecutor Guilherme de Sameneguin is collecting evidence about looting from the victims' representatives.
Depois que teve o rompimento da barragem, o pessoal foi lá e começou a saquear tudo. E aí o que o Estado fez? Nada, não protegeu o lugar.
You're part of the negotiations with Samarco. How is that going? What's the biggest obstacle?
As empresas, elas tentam controlar tudo. Então essa ideia de poderes absolutos com a empresa é que a gente tenta combater. O mais importante nas negociações com a empresa é que os atingidos participem.
Since the disaster, prosecutors have made sure that Samarco's operations have remained closed, much to the chagrin of the company's many employees and contractors who have lost their jobs.
Hi, Sergio. Okay,
Sergio Alvarenga, the director of the Metabasi trade union, is meeting us at the local unemployment office. He is currently negotiating 1,600 voluntary redundancies on behalf of Samarco employees. Sergio is looking for faces that he recognizes.
Acho que eu lembro você lá, você trabalhou na mecânica, é isso? Ah, tá, eu lembro.
Is there any other work that you can do here in Mariana?
Chegar aqui 6, 7 horas, que na hora que dá 8 horas ali, você é atendido ali 2 minutos, já não tem vaga nenhuma, nem no local nenhum, nem para Mariana, nem para região nenhuma aqui não.
Do you think the Fundao Dam and the mine should open again?
Por nós, já era para ter aberto. Assim, sentimos muito pelas perdas nas famílias que tiveram, mas nós dependemos disso também, né?
Are people angry about the fact that the mine is closed?
Estão indignados, a raiva já passou já, por causa que a tragédia já teve no meio ambiente, já foi liquidar, mas está todo mundo tentando recuperar, mas ninguém está tentando recuperar o pessoal da própria cidade, né, que está desempregado.
Sergio says Samarco told him they could restart operations even without the Fundao Dam.
Talvez dessa questão de demissão para pressionar a classe política para que venha agilizar a liberação de suas operações.
The next day, Marinalva is attending a protest in the state capital, Belo Horizonte. Victims and activists are putting pressure on the state's lawmakers to introduce legislation to make mining safer.
Correr de mar de lama daquele, ninguém vai esquecer, nunca.
Prosecutors have written new laws and are about to submit them to the state assembly. With the popular backing of over 56,000 signatures, legislators will at the very least be forced to debate these new laws. Activists sound a siren to remind everyone that lives could have been saved had there been a warning system when the Fundao Dam collapsed. Inside the hall, proceedings are starting, and Marinalva is asked to join the dignitaries.
Senhoras e senhores, bom dia. A Assembleia Legislativa do Estado de Minas Gerais recebe nesta ocasião o projeto de lei de iniciativa popular Mar de Lama Nunca Mais.
The state environmental prosecutor Carlos Eduardo Ferreira Pinto makes the case.
Nós temos mais de 700 barragens em nosso estado, mais de 400 de mineração. Agora elas continuam sendo aprovadas e fiscalizadas com o mesmo sistema que tolerou o rompimento da barragem de Fundao.
The prosecutor wants to make it outright illegal to use the cheap and fast construction method that Samarco used to build the Fundao Dam. He also wants to stop dams from being built within 5 kilometers of existing communities.
Hoje é o início da busca da sociedade mineira e não tolerarmos mais vítimas como essa de
And just maybe the mining companies are starting to feel the pressure. Samarco has unexpectedly agreed to an interview at its headquarters, the Germano complex.
Everything we're doing, there is a lot of community engagement, community consultation.
José Luis Santiago is overseeing Samarco's negotiations with survivors. We can speak to him on condition that I don't ask about the actual collapse of the dam or the ongoing investigation of senior executives. According to Samarco, the real causes of the disaster remain unconfirmed, and the company has commissioned its own investigation. José Luis denies that Samarco is using the anger of the workers to force the authorities to reopen the mine. There is a public perception that the company and the directors of the company lied about the collapse of the dam. What are you going to do to build trust with people?
We believe we regained some of this trust by demonstrating that we were able to recover the environment and especially the ways of life people lost on the incident.
Is it possible to compensate people who've lost lives, land, and who've also suffered through a huge trauma? How can that be compensated for?
Yeah, Juliana, I mean, we're never going to compensate a lost life. I mean, that's we're really sorry for that, and I understand that. But as far as the materials, sort of land and all these things, that's how we're working towards some sort of recovery, some sort of compensation. We want to repair as much as we can. Where we cannot repair, then we talk about compensation. That's the principle we apply.
The fact is, before the collapse of Fundao, Samarco was regarded as an industry leader in the field of corporate responsibility. According to official data from 2014, 1/3 of the state's 450 dams were classified as high risk, and we want to find out just how this can be allowed to happen. We're just approaching a place called Itabirito, and that's where a dam collapsed in 2014. Now, the reason why this is significant is because that was a dam for which the paperwork had submitted stating that it was fully safe, just like the Fundao Dam. We're heading for 2 dams operated by Brazil's largest mining company, Vale, the co-owner of Samarco. The first one is Maravilhas 1, a dam classified as highly unstable in 2011 and 2014 due to structural problems. But our destination is Maravilhas 2, where I'm being met by Claudio Raposo. The dam's location right next to a housing development caused the authorities to flag it up for its potential to cause high damage. We are facing nearly 70 million cubic meters of mud.
Observar que a distância entre o pé da barragem e o divisor com o condomínio é de apenas 300 metros.
So, according to your calculations, if this dam was to break now, what would happen?
Especificamente, nós vamos ter 30 segundos para sair correndo daqui.
We follow Claudio into the upmarket neighborhood where he lives. He used to be a geologist for Brazil's Nuclear Energy Authority, but his retirement is dominated by his fight against mining companies. What if the mining companies say to you, well, the dams were there, and then you came and built your houses, so if it is not safe, you should have moved to a different place?
Quando eu mudei para cá, a barragem estava com 40 metros. Hoje está com 90.
Given the danger in the event of a dam break, prosecutors have instructed Vale to buy these residents' houses.
Ou impedido que novas comunidades fossem construídas, né? Mas o plano de segurança só foi feito em abril desse ano. O efeito, o conhecimento da magnitude da catástrofe só veio com o rompimento da Fundão.
Then Claudio tells me that Valley is currently trying to obtain a license for a third Maravillas dam. He says that in order to get this license, the company is underplaying the potential damage in case of an accident.
Please.
He has made a video that illustrates what could happen if there was a dam break. Claudio says Valley bases their estimate of the damage on a dam that is only a quarter full. His own estimate is much higher, based on data from past dam breaks.
Que as outras barragens extravasaram mais de 70, more than...
Yeah, much worse than they
much.
said. He is outraged that 5 months after Fundao collapsed, Valley actually increased Maravillas 3's proposed capacity by 20 million cubic meters or 8,000 Olympic swimming pools.
O acidente de Fundão deveria provocar mais rigor nos órgãos ambientais. Os órgãos ambientais deveriam exigir maior rigor na aprovação, e foi o contrário.
In June this year, the preliminary license for Maravillas 3 was approved. Brazil seems to be lacking the right laws to make mining safer. And it is back at the State Assembly in Belo Horizonte that the political debate around the licensing of dams is taking place. Within days of the collapse of Fundao, a commission was appointed to write a report and to propose new laws. I have come to attend their final session. Last night I had a look at the members of the Extraordinary Commission of Dams, and what's quite striking is that half of them have been accused of being involved in corruption or for receiving substantial mining company donations. So I've made a little brief here with pictures so that I recognize them today. So this man here is João Magalhães. He's particularly interesting because he's currently on trial for dozens of corruption charges. He's accused of being involved in selling and illegal mining concessions in a case that involved a staggering bribe of $500,000 US. And then here, the deputy Gustavo Correa has received over $70,000 US in campaign donations from mining companies. Mining companies donated nearly $10 million US during Brazil's 2014 general elections. This prompted such concern about the influence of Brazil's largest companies that a year later, the Supreme Court ruled future campaign donations illegal. In the Assembly Hall, victims of mining disasters and activists prepare to keep up the popular pressure. But we hear that João Magalhães, the lawmaker facing a string of corruption charges, is nearby. A local journalist makes an introduction. Juliana.
Eles são da TV Al Jazeera, que estão fazendo uma matéria sobre as barragens. Como o senhor fez parte da comissão, a gente está entrevistando todos.
Mas uma entrevista do relator, Rogério.
Não, vamos.
Eu sou relator, eu não vi nenhum relatório ainda.
Can we speak to him afterwards? Can we speak to you later?
Posso? Já.
Aonde? Aqui mesmo?
I'm not really sure why he's saying that he hasn't seen the report. I've actually got a copy and he's listed as one of the co-authors. Back in the Assembly Hall, Commission members are arriving and the session has opened. Gustavo Correa starts with a passionate intervention on behalf of Samarco.
A empresa não atuou. A empresa atuou de forma responsável, obteve sempre os melhores prêmios de sustentabilidade ecológica.
Some people in the audience disagree.
Estou agindo com a minha consciência. Os culpados devem ser culpados.
And there are also Samarco supporters.
Mas nós não podemos prejudicar milhares e milhares de mineiros em função de vaidades pessoais. Então eu volto aqui a dizer, a Samarco deve retomar suas atividades o mais breve possível.
Then Rogério Correa, the report's main author, presents the proposed new laws. In line with the People's Petition, the first law proposes to ban the construction of dams like Fundao and wants to block new dams from being built near existing settlements. In addition, it suggests increasing the mining tax to improve the authorities' oversight.
Esse é o ponto alto, que eu diria, da Assembleia Legislativa. A função principal nossa, alterar agora a feita, porque isso não ocorra novamente, portanto, uma legislação mais rígida.
The panel agrees for all laws to go forward, but this is only the very first step. Now the proposed laws face a journey of fact-finding, debate and approval by 4 more commissions before being put to a vote in the Assembly. It is here that previous attempts to reform the mining sector failed when politicians stalled the voting process. So the question is whether the lawmakers' hearts really are in the new legislation. And we look for João Magalhães again.
You're on trial for dozens and dozens of corruption charges. Why should the Brazilian people trust you to act in their interest? Please, why should you be trusted, sir? You're not going to tell us?
But Gustavo Correa does agree to an interview. My most pressing question is whether the $70,000 that he has received in campaign donations from mining companies could influence his views.
As minhas doações eleitorais foram oficialmente declaradas. Eu comprovei os gastos. As empresas doaram porque acreditaram e acreditam nas minhas ideias. E cabe à justiça brasileira julgar se as minhas contas são corretas ou não.
So you can say categorically that with all this money that you've received from mining companies, there are no expectations tied to that donation.
Eu quero até que ele me pegar aqui. Eu tenho consciência tranquila que as doações foram legais e que não influenciou em absolutamente nada a minha posição.
Whilst the debate about new mining laws takes its course in the state capital, Marinalva and the people of Bento have been deciding on a site for their new settlement.
Será que vai muito tempo ainda?
Marinalva, eu acho assim, pelo menos uns 3 anos, viu?
Não, 3 anos de idade ainda.
Prosecutor Guilherme de Sameneguin backed their struggle to find a place as similar as possible to their old location.
A gente quer ter a comunidade da gente de volta. Agora, a gente ser um bairro de Mariana, não rola.
É o que a gente sempre está falando, que não é só pagar uma indenização e reconstruir a casa, é reconstruir o meio de vida.
You're seeing this for the first time. Do you like it?
Dá até para respirar, sem... Olha o barulho, nada. Passarinho cantando, muito bom.
Now the onus is on legislators to vote for laws to make Brazil's mines safer. Prosecutors like Guilherme have vowed to keep them in check.
It's important that the people keep protesting.
Sim, o papel dos atingidos, né? Mostrar mesmo o que está acontecendo, o que está errado. Dos males, né, que ocorreram, pelo menos a gente pode tirar essa lição de que o povo pode pressionar sim.
Diz que a esperança é a última que morre, né? Eu ainda tenho esperança de voltar para um cantinho igual a gente tinha de novo. Igual não, porque nada que tinha ali no Bento aqui vai ter igual.
Agora é
não tem como,
uma
não.
nova história, né?
Agora é uma nova história. Os meus netos vão reconstruir nova história aqui, se Deus quiser.
We asked Assembly member João Magalhães for a further response to issues highlighted by this programme. He didn't reply. We also asked Vale to address concerns raised about its Maravilhas dams. It told us,
the necessary adjustments have been made, and today the stability of the Maravilhas 1 dam is guaranteed. The Maravilhas 2 dam is characterised as potentially associated with high damage. To lower the potential damage to people downstream of the dam, Vale works with a safety management system and robust emergency plan.
In response to the suggestion that given the potential risks, Vale should have prevented new communities from being built near the Maravilhas 2 dam, the company said,
the area at risk is not an exclusion zone, and therefore it is not necessary to remove communities so long as there are security mechanisms in place for permanent control and to provide warnings in situations of risk.
The company also said it has not underestimated the risk arising from a possible breach at the Maravilhas 2 or 3 dams, and that the proposed capacity of its Maravilhas 3 dam has never been increased.